Rock and roll is alchemy, and Geese are the perfect practitioners for this moment. The very best rock music already exists in the air. The very best bands pull it out and give it form. Watching Geese perform live is not about science. It's also not quite about art. It's a third thing that doesn't really exist except on the right stage at the right time. It's wrangling one form into another. It's alchemy. Now, I'm not everywhere on the internet or in the real physical world, but I do understand that Geese has been having a moment. It's a little exciting and also a little scary for a rock fan like me to wonder, are they reviving rock and roll in popular media? Is that even possible in a world where you could conceivably listen to 48 minutes of background music on Spotify without even realizing that it was AI generated? Not saying that's ever happened to me. Maybe it's actually the exact perfect time for rock and roll to be brought back into the spotlight. Now, rock never died, though you could understand if somebody thought that it did. There have been some excellent rock bands playing their hearts out in clubs and in studios right through the proliferation of bedroom pop and the stratification and endless iteration of mainstream music as it is today. I've seen it, I've heard it. The great rock heroes of old have never stopped inspiring people with guitars and drum sets. It's out there. But it does feel a little like the real heart of rock and roll music has been less present in the average American's life over the last few decades, of which I've only been around for the last 3. Part of that is because it's becoming very easy to make music that doesn't require 4 other people who each must master a different physical instrument. You can make a delicious pop song with a couple of months, or maybe even really a couple of weeks or days with AI of just, figuring things out on your laptop. But I also think that part of it is just that rock music has drastically evolved over the last 50 or 60 years to the point where there isn't such thing as rock anymore at all. There's death metal and black metal and psych rock and lo-fi and shoegaze and stoner metal and prog rock and punk and post-punk and hardcore and post-hardcore. And God forbid we start talking about emo and its 5 different iterations. It's not that any of this diversification is new per se, but it's hard to argue that as the years pass, the pieces of rock get more numerous and more refined. It's a little hard to put something together that every camp of rock fan can connect to. Now, I realize it's definitely a grand claim to say that's precisely what Geese is doing. I personally love this band, but I do understand if you like rock music and don't quite connect with parts or maybe even all of their catalog. I also understand if you don't want to give them the credit for being in the act of trying to revive popular rock and roll music. But these guys are playing on SNL and late night television and at Carnegie Hall in a time when the last Grammy Award for rock album literally went to the Rolling Stones. I love the Rolling Stones. It's 2026. Come on. Geese are breaking through, and they all have birth years that start with a number 2. I saw this band last November in a club with about 500 other people. I think I paid something like $40 for the ticket. I'm 32 years old, and I saw kids in their 20s talking to Gen Xers in leather jackets who were just dumbfounded, exclaiming that they had not heard music like Geese in 35 years. Geese got on stage and played for an hour and a half straight. Everyone in that room was transported in time and space. I know they were. It really was incredible to see these relative kids absolutely blow the minds of so many different groups of people all at once. I knew immediately that it was something I had never quite seen before. Music made by a generation decidedly other than mine, but that felt like it was smashing memories of the past into ideas of the future. I felt like I got to see Led Zeppelin before they became immortal. Now, with greater visibility and popularity comes greater criticism. If you play on big stages, people are going to have opinions that you might not otherwise hear. I've seen some criticism recently of Geese's SNL performance from earlier in 2026, where they play their transformative and dizzying song Trinidad. And those criticisms made me wonder, are the folks who hate this looking for something that I am not in my rock music? I have to assume that these critics are looking for something a little safer, more familiar, easy to predict, and maybe even written out. Something more like science. Or maybe they hear Cameron Winter's strange and contorting voice drawing out these notes that don't always land in the same spot from verse to verse, and they miss the discipline that looks more to them like art. I think Geese is doing something new with old tools and processes, and that's what feels exciting about this young band. Geese are practicing alchemy. What Geese does that few young rock bands are doing well is treat tension like a structural material. Their songs don't build to a climax. They are already at the climax, held in place by repetition and rhythmic pressure until something gives way. Trinidad is a perfect example of this controlled entropy, something that sounds like it's coming apart while keeping satisfying structure that our brains can latch onto. My favorite kind of song. The real abrasiveness on the surface of this song is aggressive, but underneath it, there's a rhythmic skeleton that never breaks. Most bands that go for the kind of intensity that Trinidad frankly demands just end up with noise. And live, this quality becomes something else entirely. The song breathes differently on stage, stretches and contracts like something alive. The band sitting on a groove longer than the record, daring each other and the crowd to follow their somewhere new. It's a commitment to the moment that it seems Geese naturally understand and internalize, and I don't think that's something you can fake. This is what genius rock bands do. They make it seem like the music was always in the room, and the band is just the thing that got it to its end form.